it ends off discussing different things about Kohen's property. And they bring down a brisa, which the Torah says that there's a din that if Yisrael is makdish a sada akuza and he isn't paid it, and then the gizber sells it to someone else at Yovel, the sada and no one's paid it by Yovel, then the sada goes out to the Kohanim that were in that current mishmar, and they get to keep it, and it's considered like their sada akuza now. So they bring that. Then the brisa brings the pasuk that says that when it goes out by Yovel, kodesh Hashem kistei hacherim, that it's like a sada hacherim, and then this sada akuza should be to belongs to kindness as akuza. And then for all those that need akdama, hacherim is not what we have standard like today. Hacherim back then was sort of it's a form of making something hektish.
You're not talking about excommunication.
No, not that. That's more, I guess, a modern term. No. Back then, it's when you chayim, I guess, means destroy. It's some Rishonim understand this when you're saying something. When you're saying making a chayim on something, you're saying that this is you're declaring your property destroyed, and meaning that it's destroyed to you in the sense that you won't have any hana from it, any benefit from it, and therefore it goes to hektish. So according to these Rishonim, a chayim can be understood as the owner's relationship to his current relationship to his property. But the chinuch actually says something quite interesting in Mitzvah Shin and Zayin. He says that a chayim, the concept exists is because of us as the Klal Yisrael, we're not under the mazalos. We're directly we get we're directly what happens to us is directly controlled by Hakadosh Baruch Hu. He doesn't leave it to the mazalas, and therefore us and our property, as long as we keep the Torah properly, then there's a shefa bracha, and he says also uses the word like a ruach nediva and tahira that comes down on all of our stuff, and achirim destroy things happens to all of our enemies. And remember, when when somebody would go and say his property is achirim, he says it's destroyed. You can't. And he's saying I don't want anything to do with it anymore. It's not saying that it doesn't just go out to. You can't just get rid of it because it doesn't belong to you, because we're considered an eved, and kol masha kana eved kana rabbi. So therefore it reverts back to Hakadosh Baruch Hu's reshus, and it goes to the kayanim. And there's really two types of chayrims. There's a chayrim that it goes to bedek habayis, and there's a chayrim that you match something and it goes to the kayanim. So here we're dealing with that, it goes to the kayanim. And the Brisa wanted to know. He says, what's the reason that when we're dealing with a sada akuza, we're comparing it to a chayrim. Somebody would put a chayrim on a sada. So it says that then it goes on to say that this the reason that the pasuk makes this hektish is to tell us that if a kohen has this sada as a chayrim, he gets this sada, and then he is makdish himself by Yovel. It goes out back to all the other kohanim, because he may say that look, I'm a kohen, and by Yovel these properties that are makdish goes out to the kohanim. So let me just keep this because it's mine, And he says a little bit of a kavachaymer. He says because if just like other people's stuff, I'm kohen it, I get it. So when something's mine and I'm makdish it, I should definitely just be able to keep it. So, and therefore the pasuk comes to tell us that that you don't make this kavachaymer, and if he's makdish it and he's not paid it, it goes back, and the kohanim divided again of the mishmar that was at that yomer. And then the Gemara asks on that brayso, says, Amar Mag Shalachem Ani Zoicha. So it goes back on that little kavachaymer that he's saying because I'm Zoicha and other people's stuff, I should definitely be able to keep mine. It says, Mi Dami Hasam Zoicha Ba'alma Hacham Kashat Alei. Over there, in the case when Yisrael is not paid at his field that he was makdish by Yovel, there every kohen in that mishmar gets to take a piece of it. But over here, he's getting to keep the entire thing. So how could you be madam the two? So then it says, so what do you need the pasuk for? So it says, that we say by when a Levi has a sada achuz and he's makdish it, he says that it doesn't go to the kohen, he's able to be paid it forever. So we think So we think that this also should be considered like the kohen, he's from Sheva Levi, it should be considered his and should never go out to the other kohanim. Right? And therefore the pasuk tells you that no, it does go to the kohanim. So the Gemara asks me, Dami Kedashav Lab Rishusai, Hacham Rishusai. The last pasuk was referring to when a kohen brings his. Rashi says that it's referring to a kohen when he brings a karban. That normally when a person brings a karban, he gives it to the kohen, and the kohen brings his katz and gets to keep certain parts. But we say that even if it's not a Kohen's own mishmar, he's able to bring his own carbon and keep it. So we think over here that if this is the sort of thing he's makdish this, and he should be able to keep it. So therefore we need the pasuk. But then it says also midami kedusha blad b'shusay hakum b'shusay. Over there, when he's bringing a carbon, he's getting the pieces of meat. Although it's his carbon, he's getting it as payment for that voda. But here, it's his thing. He's not getting it for payment as anything. So what do you need the pasuk? This is what it said by Shadol Levi, that they get to keep it. So hulahem, we would think that the kohen should also be able to keep it like it's his own side achuzah. So kumashmor achuzasai. So therefore, the Torah made this hekesh to tell you achuzasai in that it's dafka someone said achuzah b'charamai loy. That when it comes to zkerim, it goes back into the pot if he's not paid it, and all the other kohen get a part of it. So in Hadran Allah Hamaycha Sadeu, this week all the Mesechus Erechim. So. Hadran Allah Mesechus Erechim v'Hadran Alon Daita Chol Mesechus Erechim v'Daita Alon Lei Nishni Sheminach Mesechus Erechim Lei Nishni Sheminach Lei V'Al Mahadin V'Lei V'Al Da'asei Hadran Allah Mesechus Erechim v'Hadran Alon Daita Chol Mesechus Erechim v'Daita Alon Lei Nishni Sheminach Mesechus Erechim Lei Nishni Sheminan Lei V'Al Mahadin V'Lei V'Al Da'asei Hadran Allah Mesechus Erechim v'Hadran Alon Daita Allah Mesechus Erechim v'Daita Alon Lei Nishni Sheminach Mesechus Erechim Lei Nishni Sheminan Lei V'Al Mahadin V'Lei V'Al Da'asei Yutzam L'Fnecha Adinei L'Hinu V'Lei V'Seinu Shetei Teretzeka Seinu B'Oim La'azeh Say Iman L'Oim La'azeh Chanina Bar Papa Ram Bar Papa Nachman Papa Achoyi Bar Papa Abamori Bar Papa Rafam Bar Papa Rokish Bar Papa Surcha Bar Papa Ada Bar Papa Doru Bar Papa the Harab Nadina Lahenu as the very Saka Bafinu, Fias Amka Israel, and yet, Lanu Anakman, the Tatani, the Tate Amka Israel, Lanu Yedi Shmek, Landisar Saka, may Oibak, Tehak Mani, Mitzvah Kila, Mili, Hili Visa, the Alam Lai Eshkak, Bekudecha, Ki Vam, Hisani, Barakata Dinai, Labin, Amin, 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 Salahed. Moedem anachnu lefanecha Adonai Eloheinu v'hei v'seinu shesamta chalkeinu miyeshi b'ishad midrash v'lesamta chalkeinu miyeshi karanos shenu mashkim v'hem mashkim anu mashkim l'divrei Torah v'hem mashkim l'dvar anu amin v'hem amin anu amin v'mekam sachar v'hem amin v'hem mekam sachar anu ratzim v'hem ratzim anu ratzim l'chai olam haba v'hem ratzim l've'er shach shnema v'yata l'hem taridim l've'er shachas anshe dam u'mirma loy yakatsu yimei v'ani eftach v'ach yiratzim l'fanecha Adonai l'chai Kishem as Zarchani the same Mesechus Arachim came to Azrani Lahatkam Mesechus Mispar Machim U'Saimun Lilma Luan Lishma Velasquez Rukayim is called Divi Samtar Sekha Be'ahava was Kus Kol Hataneba Amiram the Talmidei Chacham Yamud Li Uzari Shaloi Samush Hatar Mipi Umipi Zari Vizera Zari Adolam Utiskayim Vi Vehis Halecha Tanka Iskal Bishak V'Chal Tishmar Alecha V'Ayisek Shikaka Kivi Yuhu Yamecha the Yosifu Lacha Shnais Kaim Orifyam the Amino V'Smaila Oisha V'Kaved Adonai Yozne Moiken Adonai Direct V'Yashon Yiskadal Yiskadash Merava Le'eschadasa ule'achayot ve'isai ule'aska yasai v'chai omo ule'mit Yushalem ule'shach lola hech le v'gava le'mekar palchana nuchra min ara le'avasa palchana dishmaya le'asrei B'yam l'chuche b'rechu b'malchuse b'karei v'chayechoni b'yam b'chayechol b'Yisrael b'agalav zman karibim ru'amein Yinei shmirah v'murach l'lam me'el na'yah Yisbarach v'yishbach 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 v'yishnaseh V'yisadar v'yisalah v'yisalah shmei d'gushav b'rechu Le'elam b'kol b'rechasa v'shirasa t'shukasa v'nechamasa d'amiram v'amaldim ru'amein Al Yisrael v'al Rabbanan v'al Talmidein v'al kol Talmidein hain v'al kol mandaska v'yashudi B'asar hadin v'chol asar v'asar yehelu hain u'lechoin Shalom Rab v'china v'chista v'rachmin v'chain arichin u'mezoina reviche u'fur kana u'kadam avuni v'shmai v'arabim romein Yehisham Rab v'shmai v'chain kaim oleinu v'yakol Yisrael v'romein Amen Ayishasham v'mremel v'yazasham oleinu v'yakol Yisrael v'romein Amen Just
wait, one second. I think I hit the wrong button.
Oh, that's all right. The wrong button makes the chairs fall down.
Exactly. Yeah, let me just say something. Just see my parents on Skype. My mother just wants me to say something.
Are you there?
So hang with me for a second, and see how this goes. So now I was thinking about this is really the 12th Yortzeit, and unfortunately, no one's really been good to keeping Siums for it, to making a Sium for it. And I was thinking this year I just decided, I was going to go for it. And I was thinking about, there's really some significance that the year that, I decided to do it had to be when I'm in Baltimore. I mean, because first of all, my grandfather came over from the Holocaust, and at first he came down to, Minnesota, and he stayed he was there with my great-grandmother. And, he wasn't going to really grow up so from over there because, unfortunately, this aunt and uncle, they weren't so from themselves. And then they had relatives, I think it was her sister or brother, I don't know exactly, but they brought him over here.
His wife.
Well, his wife.
And her parents.
Her parents, right. Brought them over here, and his Yiddishkeit really began. I mean, they gave him a from home, and, he was able to go to TA over here, and this is really where he had, his chinuch, and where he really grew to know Torah mitzvahs. And, he always had an attachment from here, and, he always used to come down, and he always held Baltimore to be a very special place for him, even though, most of his life he lived in Staten Island. And, this is also, it's kind of significant because, the first time I'm actually making the Sium, this happens to really be the first Masechta that I never learned the Kiyas until I came to Ner Yisrael. And that was, the first time that, I'm really doing it, which is, I guess I was influenced over here. Until now I was in the Lake Yeshiva, focused more on Ian. But now, here in Ner Yisrael, it struck me, and I find it interesting because, that, me and Binyamin, my grandfather's two oldest grandchildren, that we ended up in yeshiva here in Baltimore, in, the yeshiva of Baltimore, Ner Yisrael. Which I kind of find even more interesting because I think it was a twist of events, because Binyamin's father was telling me that, even Binyamin, he wasn't supposed to come here, and then in the summer they came down, and he got lucky and got in, and it was a very last-minute decision. And even for me personally, I didn't, Ner Yisrael in Baltimore was, when I was planning on switching yeshivas, was not on the map. And at the last second, my parents said, why not come? They wanted to try Pahar out, and it's tough. So at the last second, somehow we both ended up here, and then, I was, to be able to have the influence to be able to finish the Masechta. So I just find it interesting, and kind of significant. But anyways, my grandfather, he died really when I was, 2 years ago. This is 12th Yortzeit, and I was 7 years old at the time. It was a month before my 8th birthday. So I didn't really know him much, on an intellectual level. He was my Zaidi, and that's, I knew actually, to be more exact, I used to call him Zaidi Belly. He had this big stomach, and that's what I used to call him when I was a kid in his sock. He seemed to have liked the name, except, when I used it in public. He was kind of a little embarrassed, but my memories of him are mostly stories. He used to, I guess he used to play a lot of cowboys and Indians, but he used to have these stories about in Minnesota. He was Chief, Younger Chief, that was his stories, and I just always had, his smiles. And one thing, embedded is I remember his laugh very much. And now my family, we had a lot of old videos that we were converting now, from old things that we took. We never watched them, but now recently we actually have started, to put them onto the computer, and we've been flipping through them, and it's, I always remember him very into us, but there we were actually able to see it, and it's very interesting. He was always, just to see it, literally like a time machine, to see, and able to understand him, at a much more, and to see him, I guess, and to appreciate him at a much more of a level now. As a kid, I saw how he used to take an interest, even like computer games. When I was playing as a kid, he would love to run around, and we even hear him in the background a lot of times saying, to my grandmother, like what simcha he had, and the fact that, us, the grandchildren, were very happy. But then, this time came, and although I never, I didn't really have the chance to know him. But then I didn't, at that point, it didn't really mean that much to me, unfortunately. The house was actually kind of exciting because I was a little kid and all these people were there, and I liked the attention. But
normal.
Yeah, but as I got older, I actually went through, some pains, really, especially now that I'm in Baltimore, hearing a lot about him, and some pains, not to have that relationship that I have with my other grandfather, or that other people have with their grandfathers. And I feel like I kind of missed the boat on a special person. An old random, once Shvat hit, this is kind of, old random, but I was actually thinking about starting to get ready for the scene, thinking about, what to do, maybe what to say, how to start getting things together after Rosh Chodesh. And a very interesting thing happened. My Uncle David here, he found in his house an old journal that, from a yeshiva, it's called Katz, Talmudic Academy of Brooklyn, which dealt with kids who, had some learning disabilities, or what was then, when it opened, there was a 4th year dinner in 1985, so it opened, I guess, in 81, and dealing with kids that, sort of what was then at-risk kids. And it goes on to, describe how much of an enthusiasm my grandfather had for, Torah and Yiddishkeit, and how much, he was able to instill, right, he was able to instill that Yiddishkeit into, that enthusiasm into other people. I mean, and I just thought that was kind of interesting as, this was coming up and just started thinking about it. I was trying to think about my grandfather, what I really knew, and then all of a sudden I find this, and then my grandmother was telling me stories, and I actually bumped into one of my grandfather's friends, and they were telling me stories about how he really loved her and how he really gave a lot to yeshivas, and not only money, but in himself, helping them. And then even weirder was the Shabbos. I mean, the Shabbos afterwards. I mean, I don't know what you can take from this, but my brother was Eretz Yisrael, and my family's close to somebody who's, they call him a Kabbalah, as Kabbalist, whatever you want to use. But it's an interesting story. So, anyways, my brother had a Shabbos meal with him because my great uncle was there. And my brother sits down and he's talking to my brother. He says, by the way, when you walk into your house, he's never been in my house before. He lives in Eretz Yisrael. And he says, when you walk into your house, on the left is your living room. My brother goes, yeah. He says, all the way in the left corner, there's a picture, of somebody. So, and it happens to be that in that corner, a while back, after my great-grandmother passed away, they have a picture, a bar mitzvah picture of my grandfather, and we took it back from Eretz Yisrael, and we didn't have a place to hang it up really, so we put it in the corner of the room. The back really left corner, so it says that corner, and he says, there's a picture over there in that really far left corner of a very holy person. Who is that holy person, and why is he all the way in the corner of the room? Move him over to the right, he wants to do this. I don't know what you can take about that, but
I'm dyslexic.
I don't know. It was just interesting that, we found the dinner journal, and this happened as soon as we really started getting...
He's a Kabbalist, but he's dyslexic.
Right, I don't know. So we moved the picture over. just to be sure, just to be safe. But, even though I grew up with my grandfather, not really knowing him, but his influence is something that, I grew with and it that existed and actually was, definitely from my mother was a foundation to, how I grew up and, the chinuch that they gave me. I mean, to really start with what in my house, my grandfather is, legendary for, and even, the people that he worked with known for was, they call him the Minion Man. He used to work in a textile company, and he used to have to go to, China and India and Guatemala. He was all over the world. And, all over the States also. And no matter where he went, he always knew where the minyanim were, and, he made it to the minyanim. Mm-hmm. And people used to call him up with the strangest question, where, in the middle of China, I'm here and here, in China, where can I find the minyan? And, if he was there, he knew where the minyanim were. And this, so he was known as a minyan man. And, this was, this did play a role in it, especially when I first started going to Minyan. I lived across the street from Yeshiva, and for some reason, the way it works out is the ones who live close to Yeshiva are always the latest. So, and this was, something that my parents told me in the beginning, when we had to start going, that, this is the family legacy. And now, I got at my bar mitzvah, I took this tefillin, so it's, even more in a Christ to get up and to make sure to be there by every Shabbos. Another thing is interesting that his, one other thing that I remember about him was that, he was very makbid. He's in some of the, what people might call the, the smallness. I remember, there's sukkahs right before, it may have been the sukkahs before, or before he passed away, but, he would always make sure, little things, he spent time with Kiddush, or he spent a lot of times, in the sukkah, even though it's freezing cold. Remember, one bump in the coat, he was still there making sure to eat, and actually sat down and was enjoying the time in the sukkah when we were all freezing. I thought he was out of his mind at the time. I didn't want to go out there, but, these things, and even Tu B'Shvat, it's interesting that that's when he passed away, because I remember he used to come with fruit platters. He just gave me my first buckser, and, he really used to go and in these things, and even he was in Nifta on Friday night, but right at the beginning of the Shabbos meal, but they had all this. My grandma said, I remember they had all the fruit platters in there. They didn't really know. And then the last thing, which is really also what he's kind of what anyone who knows him really knows. They always say is that how he treated his family, especially his kibburim. He never had a father, but his kibburim, he really went beyond the letter of the law in taking care of his mother and honoring his mother, and he would come back and forth. And and buy her furniture, whatever she needed, and he would constantly, take care of his mother. I wasn't there at the time to see it, but I was able to see from how my mother, treats her mother, and especially when we would go to Eretz Yisrael, my mother would be willing to make, the trip to Eretz Yisrael all to make my great grandmother a cup of tea. And she would just love to sit there and take care of my great. That was her highlight of the trip to Eretz Yisrael was to take care of my great grandmother. And she, my father jokes and calls it, he wants Bubby treatment. That's what he always tells my mother, when he wants things. And even, my grandmother says, she has a friend, who says about her own husband that, if she was drowning in the sea and her mother-in-law was drowning, that, she's not sure who her husband would save. My grandmother and people who know my grandfather say, they don't have a selfie. He would definitely go in for his mother and, leave my grandmother floating. So I mean, So anyways, that was my, a little bit of my grandfather. He was very pushy. He wasn't necessarily the biggest Lamed, but he definitely, he definitely, did what he was able to, and in certain mitzvahs he was really outstanding. And I've heard about it, and he was very, very close, and just also always maintained that family connection. So I mean, I feel very significant, that we kind of lost track, because I used to come down with him a lot. And since he passed away, we haven't been here as much, but I'm very, so I do find it significant that we're finally here. 12, it's 12 years later, but finally here, we're making the real next Sium for his Yortzeit together with the family, and and I just also feel that that the family really is family. And I just want to thank them for being able to host this, and for knowing from Nathan, Herschel, and David. Thank you very much for your family, and I'm always welcome. All right. Thank you.
I'll just follow up with a few words.
Sorry. Afterwards.
Since I hear him.
Sorry. Yeah.
Since I hear him give such a speech. That's my brother. And that's me. He's the older one. He was born. Some of you don't know. These friends of his that are here for the Sium. And that's where they grew up with the few boys in Baltimore that were at that time Shomer Shabbat. There weren't that many. And as I said before, it wasn't easy. And when he finished high school, he went for a year to Mary Yeshiva in Brooklyn. But it wasn't for him. He wanted right away to go out and make a living, because he wasn't born with a silver spoon in the mouth. He was born with a wooden spoon in the mouth. Never had any. But poverty. People shouldn't know that. But, it's coming from the war, and nobody gave him anything. And how you gonna make a living and get married and support a family and all the rest of it? It's not like the luxury people have today, and someone supporting you, for a kollel and all the rest of it. It didn't exist. And he threw himself from then on and afterwards with big energy into business, and he got into that 24/7. Ari's own big power in business was tremendous energy and dedication, and he built it up, went around the world. But he always had, and just saying over here, that's why he would be so proud of the team today, but he always had a thing. He's not learning, but he was a big supporter of Yeshiva, big supporter of Torah. He gave a lot of money when he had it, and there are many places you probably don't know. If you go around Brooklyn and New York, you'll see this wing or that thing is given by Ari Levitt. You're too young to know about all this. I just gave you a little booklet that was lying around that I had in the car. So there are other schools and things that honor them, because Hachazak was a big deal with him. And he was very happy to, when Yoshio, your father, was learning, and after the Torah, he loved to support that sort of thing. And later in life, for a couple of years, then he got interested himself in learning, because when you reach a certain plateau in life, then all of a sudden you say, what have I missed? He used to go to Katz here in the Republic National Bank. And it's a real lesson in the fact that most of the people who grew up in his time, and even friends who went through his experience, did not stay from. And the reason they didn't do it is because they had times when they were Rebbeinu Shalom, and they did have times. Why have to go through the Holocaust? Why have to lose my family? Why don't you lose? Why does this one have this? I don't have that. But people were built in a certain way, as he was, had a different attitude, and he had tremendous emunah. Essentially, he was like a very, very religious person. The real thing, not the externals. And already from a young age, he said, this is the derech I want to go on in life. And it's not like today. Not so many people wanted to do it that time. And it was really tough, and I'll tell you a story you probably don't know. And when he was starting, he was 19 or something like that. So he started wanting to go out and do something in business to try to make a living, because they didn't have any money. So at that time, my mother had a friend that came from Los Angeles, actually. What's that? Trico. And they went, and the guy had connection with the Satmar Rebbe. He wasn't a chassid, but like a lot of Hungarian Jews, they were shackled with them. And then the story, they all drove to New York. This is a true story. They all drove to New York to go see the Satmar Rebbe. And the guy, he was sick, that's what it was. This guy from LA. He went to Rabbi. And they went ahead, my mother went with them all, because it was her girlfriend from Czechoslovakia. And they went, and he got a bracha and all that kind of stuff. And he must have said something along the following lines. There's a kid outside, a young guy, he's a Yosem from the old country in the war. You should give him a bracha too, even though he doesn't know any Yiddish or anything like that. And when he came out, he told her, he said, you come in, what's going on? He told my mother, you stayed away. Because the Rebbe doesn't see women. But he sent him in, and he was in there like for 5 minutes or something like that.